Hitler is the most genocidally evil dictator that there ever was.
Have you ever made a decision you knew was wrong but convinced yourself it was for the right reasons? Maybe you bent the rules, crossed a line, but told yourself, it's fine. The end justifies the means.
He was scared that something can happen to his life. People were scared of him, and also he was scared of the people.
Now imagine that impulse, but magnified to the scale of empires. Imagine it shaping history.
Nicolae Ceausescu as a madhouse, in which the lunatics were running the asylum and the inmates were punished for their sanity.
History's so-called villains weren't born with horns and a pitchfork. If they had been, maybe the world would have seen them coming. Instead, they were often visionaries, revolutionaries, even heroes in the eyes of their followers. Some of them even did good, real, tangible good. Not by accident, but by design. Under different circumstances, their names might have been praised rather than condemned. Before you assume this is some attempt at historical revisionism, hear me out. Because this isn't just about the past. It's about the present. It's about the future. It's about us. But first, take a moment. Think back to the last time you justified something morally questionable because you believed the outcome was worth it. Hold on to that thought. It's going to get uncomfortably relevant. Let's start with one of the most difficult examples, Adolf Hitler. And let's be clear, there is no excuse, no justification, no minimizing the horrors of the Holocaust. This is about something deeper, about understanding how evil operates and why it so often succeeds. In 1933, Nazi Germany passed what were, at the time, the most progressive animal welfare laws in the world. Hitler banned animal experimentation, imposed strict hunting regulations, and fought for better treatment of livestock. He was such a devoted vegetarian that guests at his dinner table dreaded his impassioned lectures on ethics. Imagine sitting down for a meal, only to have Adolf Hitler tell you that your morals are lacking. Unsettling, isn't it? And yet, the same man who advocated for the humane treatment of animals orchestrated one of the greatest atrocities in human history. This wasn't just hypocrisy. This was cognitive dissonance on a horrifying scale. Zoom out. Germany in the 1930s was broken, humiliated after World War I. Its people were desperate. Hitler promised them something they longed for, a vision of national strength, renewal, prosperity. And that's why they followed him. Evil rarely presents itself as monstrous. It wears the face of hope. It offers solutions. It speaks the language of progress. Now take Joseph Stalin. Under his iron-fisted rule, the Soviet Union transformed from a rural backwater into a superpower. Literacy rates soared from 24% to over 90%. Women entered the workforce and the sciences in unprecedented numbers. Soviet breakthroughs in physics, engineering, and space exploration changed the world. But Stalin wasn't investing in education because he valued human potential. He once called education a weapon, clarifying that its effectiveness depended on who wielded it. Stalin's reforms weren't about empowering people, they were about controlling them. Imagine him at a graduation ceremony. Congratulations, knowledge is power, unless you use it against me, in which case, enjoy Siberia. Yes, his policies led to progress, but that progress was built on purges, forced labor camps, and engineered famines. Millions perished. The achievements of Stalin's USSR came at an unbearable cost. Now let's go further back, to a name that still evokes fear, Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan's Mongol hordes were the stuff of nightmares. His conquests wiped entire civilizations off the map. His armies were ruthless, his tactics brutal. Cities that resisted were turned to ash. And yet, the empire he built connected the world like never before. Trade routes flourished, forming the backbone of the Silk Road. Ideas, medicine, and technology spread across continents. He implemented policies of religious tolerance centuries before Europe even considered the idea. He abolished torture in legal proceedings, established postal systems, and championed meritocracy over aristocracy. Was he a barbarian or a visionary, or was he both? Now let's fast forward to industrial age America and meet Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie was one of the wealthiest men in history. His steel empire was built on exploited laborers who toiled in brutal conditions for meager wages. When workers tried to unionize, they were crushed, sometimes violently. And yet, Carnegie also became one of the world's greatest philanthropists. He built over 2,500 libraries, founded universities, and donated millions to science and the arts. He wrote The Gospel of Wealth, arguing that the rich had a moral duty to give back to society. But here's the question: was his philanthropy genuine? Or was it an attempt to cleanse his conscience after years of ruthless capitalism? Every library bearing his name is a paradox, an act of generosity built on the suffering of the workers who made him rich. Now let's step into the underworld with Pablo Escobar. At his peak, Escobar controlled 80% of the world's cocaine trade. He was responsible for thousands of deaths. His cartel ruled through fear, corruption, and violence. And yet, in Medellin, many still remember him as a benefactor. He built homes, schools, and hospitals for the poor. He personally walked through slums, handing out money. He even burned $2 million in cash to keep his daughter warm while on the run. To some, he was more than a drug lord. He was their champion. But for every hospital he funded, there was a bombing. For every school he built, there was a massacre. Escobar's legacy is a stark reminder that generosity can exist alongside horror. And this is why this conversation matters. Evil doesn't always look like evil. It doesn't arrive with flashing lights and sirens. It doesn't announce itself with a villainous laugh. Think about it. Governments justify mass surveillance in the name of security. Corporations destroy ecosystems under the guise of economic development. Tech billionaires build schools while simultaneously exacerbating wealth inequality. Even social movements, in their quest for justice, can tip into vengeance. And let's talk about the internet. Cancel culture, exposing and condemning people online, often begins with noble intentions, accountability. But at what point do the methods become indistinguishable from the injustice they claim to fight? This is how it starts, not with gas chambers or gulags, but with small justifications, with people believing they are on the right side of history, with the belief that a little wrong is acceptable in pursuit of a greater right. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is taking their first step down that path. And the scariest part? They believe they are doing the right thing. So what can we do? First, start with yourself. The next time you feel tempted to justify something questionable in the name of a bigger goal, pause. Ask yourself, where does this road lead? Second, stay alert. Question the narratives presented to you. Speak up, not with accusations, but with understanding. Finally, ask yourself, what is being justified in my world today? Because history doesn't need monsters to repeat itself. It only needs good people to stop questioning their own certainty. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.